And I'd like to bring in my next guest, freshman Democratic Congresswoman Lizzie Fletcher of the great state of Texas. Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us this Sunday afternoon. You just heard there's some differences between the Trump administration, your own party. What's your take on this? Give me your thoughts on exactly what you would need to see in any agreement in order to avoid another government shutdown by this Friday.
Well, Ayman, thanks so much for having me this afternoon. And I think, it's really important to understand that Democrats have been opposed to a shutdown from the beginning. For those of us who are freshmen, it was very frustrating to come into Congress and find the government was already shut down. And Democrats, our caucus, spent a lot of time communicating about the hardships that it caused on the federal workers and the ripple effect it had throughout our communities. And so we are absolutely committed to preventing another shutdown. I think that what we have done is we've put our trust in the Committee of Appropriators that your guests were just discussing. And I am confident that we will get Republicans and Democrats in the House and the Senate working together, because we all understand that the people we represent are the ones who are going to be hurt by another shutdown. So we're committed, and I have a lot of confidence in the appropriators getting a deal done.
There's no doubt, Congresswoman, that Texas obviously plays a very important role in this immigration debate. The president, as we mentioned, he's heading to El Paso tomorrow. I'm sure you're aware of the comments he's been making about that city, and in particular during his State of the Union, where he said that crime dropped because of a barrier that was built there, which factually is not correct. But he basically said that El Paso used to have an extremely high crime rate, and it dropped when a wall was constructed. I know that you don't represent that city, but how do you think the president is likely to be greeted in El Paso after those comments?
Well, you're right. I don't represent El Paso. I'm all the way on the other side of the state, but I was sitting just a few seats away from Veronica Escobar on Tuesday evening at the State of the Union, and she represents El Paso, and she was very clear that the statistics that the president cited were not accurate. And in fact, what we know is that crime was decreasing in El Paso for a decade before the wall was built, and afterwards, the crime rate did begin to rise. But what Congresswoman Escobar has said, the mayor of El Paso has told us, is that El Paso is an incredibly safe city. It is currently the safest large city, over 500,000 people in the country by various metrics and data. And so I think that it's really important, and one of the reasons that I decided to seek this job in Congress is to get back to having real conversations based on the facts, so that we can then decide what the best policy is. And I think that we know that there's going to be activity in El Paso when the president arrives. I hope that it will help the president see that there are other options and alternatives, and that the people are galvanized to come up with solutions and work together. That's certainly true here in my community. And we're, of course, interested in border security here in Texas, but we want to listen to the people who represent the border communities. And Will Hurd, who's one of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle and the other side of the state, has said he represents the largest section of the border, and he does not support a border wall. I think what a lot of folks on my side of the aisle have been saying, and freshman Democrats and freshmen in Congress have been saying, is that we want to get back to a debate about start with the same set of facts and go from there on what are the best policy choices. Hear from the experts and hear from the people who are affected. That's the goal right now, and I hope that that is what our appropriators are doing, and that that's what we'll do as we continue to talk about border security.
Congresswoman, we have time for one last question. I wanted to get your thoughts on a proposal that has been put forward by one of your colleagues, another member of this exciting freshman class, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York, along with Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts. They've introduced what they're calling the Green New Deal this week. I'm curious to get your thoughts, because it sets some very ambitious goals for cutting carbon emissions. And given that you are from the state of Texas, with Houston being the heart of big oil in this country, I'm curious to hear your thoughts and your reaction to this proposed legislation. Do you think it's feasible?
Well, I think that we really need to listen to the experts and people with all different opinions and data about what it is that we can do. I think we all share an interest and a common goal of making sure that we address the challenge of climate change head on, that we address a lot of the inequities that they have raised. And I think that it's really important that as we continue our conversation about our energy future, that we hear from everyone. Houston Houston isn't just the oil capital. Houston's the energy capital of the world. And we are committed here to making sure that we are leaders going into the future and that we are a part of the conversation and leading the conversation on how we grow and how we maintain our planet for our children and our grandchildren.
All right, Congresswoman Lizzie Fletcher, thank you for making your debut with us here on this show. You have a standing invite to come anytime you want.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.